Generative AI is completely changing the game for academic research. I mean, from writing papers to analyzing data, it's everywhere. But this awesome new toolkit comes with a huge ethical catch, and it's putting researchers in a really, really tough spot. All right, let's just dive right into the heart of it. Picture this. You're a researcher, and you've just used an AI tool to help you make a big breakthrough. So now you've got to choose. Do you tell everyone and risk your reputation? Or do you keep it a secret and, risk your own integrity? Well, this exact problem has a name now. It's called the transparency paradox, and it perfectly captures this massive tension between the ethical thing to do, which is being open, and the real-world professional cost of doing it. I mean, we're talking about a head-on collision between ethics, how people perceive your work, and the future of science itself. So, what's the official word on this? Well, the global scientific community has definitely tried to lay down the law. And you'd think, on paper at least, that the rules would be super straightforward. Yeah, pretty much all the big players, we're talking the world's leading academic gatekeepers, are on the same page. From top-tier journals to major ethics committees, the message is loud and clear. If you use AI, you have to disclose it, period. And the why behind this rule is actually super interesting because it goes right back to the core principles of science. First up, accountability, right? An AI can't take the blame if something's wrong, so the human author has to own it completely. Then there's reproducibility. I mean, for science to work, other people have to be able to check your work and repeat your methods. And finally, it's about giving credit where credit is due, making sure we know what came from a human brain and what didn't. Okay, so if the rules are so black and white, why are so few people actually following them? Well, this is where the paradox really sinks its teeth in. It turns out that being honest, it can cost you. Big time. So a really important study in 2025 from Schilke and Ryman uncovered something pretty shocking. They ran a whole bunch of experiments and found that when a researcher discloses that they used AI, people just trust them less. It's a systematic thing. And this quote from their paper really just hits the nail on the head. They explain that when you disclose AI use, it basically acts as a heads up, a red flag. It tells people that your work isn't purely human, which a lot of folks see as, well, illegitimate. And that's what kills the trust. It just goes against our gut feeling about what real brain work is supposed to be. And the data from their study is just so clear. As you can see, credibility takes a huge nosedive as soon as AI is mentioned. But what's really wild is that third bar. Even when researchers said, hey, a human reviewed everything, it didn't matter. The damage was already done. Just saying the letters AI seems to be enough to set off this bias. And this isn't just some academic thought experiment, right? This creates a very real culture of fear and secrecy. Think about it. You've got researchers being punished for being honest, while the ones who keep their AI use a secret are actually rewarded with more credibility. It's completely backwards. And this whole situation gets way worse when the institutions themselves don't step up. Take this 2023 study of Brazilian academic journals. It found what they called a massive normative vacuum. Basically, a giant hole where the rules are supposed to be. A staggering 94% of journals had zero guidelines on AI use. That leaves researchers totally on their own, flying blind. And guess what fills that void? Stigma. When there are no official rules, using AI just gets slapped with all these negative labels. That it's lazy, it's cheating, or that you just aren't smart enough to do it yourself. So what happens? People hide it. It forces the whole practice underground, which just creates this awful vicious cycle. The fear stops people from talking about it, and because nobody's talking about it, the stigma just gets stronger. So, how in the world do we fix this mess? Well, the answer isn't to just throw transparency out the window. The real solution is to completely reshape the academic world so that honesty is actually supported and maybe even rewarded. Okay, first things first, we need clarity, like desperately. One of the biggest problems on the ground is that no one can agree on what substantial use of AI even is. I mean, is running a spell check the same as having an AI generate a research hypothesis? Of course not. Researchers need clear, practical lines in the sand. And the good news is some of these practical guidelines are starting to show up. For example, this framework from Resnick and Hosseini is super helpful. They break it down into 3 simple buckets. There's mandatory disclosure for the heavy lifting stuff, like writing whole sections or analyzing data. Then there's optional for things like brainstorming ideas. And finally, unnecessary for the small stuff, like fixing your grammar. But clear rules aren't a silver bullet. they're just not enough on their own. What we really need is a massive cultural shift across all of academia. We're talking about open debates to make AI feel like a legitimate tool, not a dirty secret. We need universities to actually teach students how to use it ethically and effectively. Journals and schools need to get on the same page with their policies. And maybe most crucial of all, we need the leaders, the senior researchers and editors, to lead by example and start openly talking about how they use AI responsibly. That's how you kill the stigma. So at the end of the day, this whole thing is way bigger than just one new piece of tech. This is about protecting the integrity and credibility of science itself as we move into this new era. So the question we really need to ask ourselves is this: how do we flip the script? How do we transform transparency from something that feels like a risky, courageous act into what it should be, a sign of real scientific strength and innovation?